He tailed his maid one ordinary night to catch a thief and found the teacher who would rewrite him. He had grown used to rooms that yielded at a glance and people who arranged themselves around his schedule like furniture. She moved through those same rooms like oxygen, everywhere, necessary, unseen. 2 dresses, careful bun, the practiced, almost ceremonial. Good morning, sir. Every evening the gate coughed her out at 5:55 with 2 nylon bags hugged to her sides. Food in one, papers in the other, purpose in both. He told himself boundaries are healthy. Then curiosity let itself in without knocking and sat at the head of his mind. No driver tonight, no entourage to witness his pettiness. He slid behind the wheel and followed the pattern of a life he had never asked about. She folded into the city's heat and bargaining and unafraid laughter, paying with coins that had conversations with each other. The yellow bus peeled paint like old sunburn. He shadowed in an SUV that made potholes apologize. She climbed down where the city stopped pretending. Corrugated roofs, open drains, children who read traffic like scripture. She slipped through a rusted gate, brave enough to call itself a door. Above it a sign kept its chin up, House of Second Chances, free classes, free meals, free hope. He parked in a pocket of shadow and leaned into the cracked window, and what he saw there cinched something behind his ribs until it listened. Adults sat like children with notebooks on their knees, calluses telling their own biographies. Market women whose wrists had learned to negotiate gravity. Men in dusty boots who carried the day home in silence. At the front, chalk, steady hand, alive eyes, grace. Today's lesson wasn't poetry. It was survival disguised as paperwork. How to fill hospital forms without letting the form fill your fear. Pharmacy, she said, splitting the word into stepping stones. Voices followed. Wrong first, then right, and the sound felt like a key finally finding the lock it was cut for. A man's embarrassment, rented for years, packed and left his face. Then the bag, loaves, sachets, sequence that made sense to hearts before math. Elders, mothers, the rest. No speeches, no selfies, no savior's glow. Only work that knew applause rots truth if you feed it too often. Something ached inside him where money had never visited. Respect rubbed shoulders with shame and both made room for wonder. He went home to a house tuned for perfect sleep and slept badly anyway. Lamps hummed. A clock ticked in a language that sounded like regret. Online, the center's outdated page dared to hope. There she was in a faded blouse, laughter that arrived without asking permission. Underneath, we don't need to be rich to make a difference. We just need to care enough to try. Alone, he spoke the sentence men like him avoid. I've been generous with money and stingy with attention. Morning made marble forgive everything. He didn't. She placed his tray. He did the dangerous thing, invited a conversation he couldn't control. Sit. She perched like someone who knows chairs can bite. No throat clearing, no softeners. I followed you yesterday. Her hands paused midair like birds when seasons arrive out of order. I saw the board, the bread. You, he exhaled, not as my maid. Shame sprinted to the front of her defense as if it practiced daily drills. I wasn't taking, I know, he said too fast, then slowed to the speed of respect. I know you weren't. Why not ask for help? Not interrogation this time, invitation. She watched the grain of the table until courage gathered. Help comes with a hand on your back, she said, and sometimes that hand starts steering. The sentence rearranged his furniture. Why the center? He asked, quieter. She told the story that charges a toll every time it travels. A father who couldn't read, a hospital fluent only in forms, a delay that became a funeral. I teach paperwork, she said, voice steady, because the world makes paperwork a door. That night he found her at the kitchen table, glasses sliding down her nose, maps of notes spreading like weather. Bridging the Gap, the cover read. Interviews that treated strangers as archives. A line from a student stuck like burrs. I used to walk past hospitals in pain because I couldn't fill a form. Now I walk in with my head up. He closed the file the way you handle a bird that trusts you. You're giving people back to themselves, he said. It sounded like praise. It felt like confession. Rain argued with the roof on Saturday. She left anyway. Umbrella, bags, duty that doesn't ask weather for permission. He stepped into her small room for the first time. Single bed, wooden shelf. The kind of tidy poor people practice because control over small spaces feels like power. When the world sells you the big kind at cruel rates. A photo of a woman with kind, finished eyes. He stood as if the floor had posted a sign, "Remove your shoes. Someone's hope lives here." She returned soaked. He met her with a towel that fixed nothing and still mattered. "If you had one wish," he asked later, "what would it be?" "Not money, not escape. A place where no one is too small to be seen." "Let me help you build it," he said. She inhaled like a wave, unsure the shore would keep its promise. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe is honest," he answered, surprised to hear patience trying on his mouth. Monday introduced a wound-colored paper on the center's door. Lease lapses in 7 days. Renew in person. Applicant must complete all sections unaided. No proxies, no kindness. Literacy wasn't theme anymore. It was a lock. "We'll handle it," he said. "We?" she asked, testing the word like a bridge. "We," he repeated, choosing the price without seeing the bill yet. He called his legal chief. "Quietly," he said. "No headlines." The advice arrived disguised as concern. "Optics," the voice warned. "You fund while she runs?" Reads like abdication. He watched a skyline he owned imitate humility in glass. "I don't fund optics," he said. "I fund outcomes." A pause, the bureaucratic equivalent of a flinch. "Understood." The landlord smelled urgency and did arithmetic. Renewal doubled overnight. A glossy donor offered to cover it if his logo lorded over the door and his smile colonized a poster. "No," she said before the sentence finished. He smirked, the kind of man used to hearing yes later. "Think on it. Our brand gives legitimacy." She smiled back the way people do who purchase legitimacy the hard way. "We already have a brand," she said. "It's called Dignity." He pulled his money and his permission at once. Setback tasted like metal. "We'll pivot," Henry said. "To what?" "To everybody else." And he wrote 3 calls, 5 emails, and 1 check with no name attached. The next morning he set terms without the usual ruin. "I'll fund renewal and 10 satellites in a year. Teachers paid. Materials stocked. Light, air, water. But the rules are yours. Community board, 5 seats, 3 elected by students. You chair. Veto on branding and hires. Independent audits, open books. No plaques. No photos unless you ask. My money patient. My name optional." He stopped and waited where men like him usually don't, please. "Let me finish," she said when he began to fill the silence out of habit. He closed his mouth, first real promise kept. "I'm afraid," she said. "Afraid of saying yes and waking up inside a story where I'm a prop." "Then don't," he answered, and both of them startled at the sound of it. "Say yes only where your voice can fire me." She almost laughed at the audacity of safety. "You'd sign that?" "Draft it," he said. "I'll sign." Her maybe turned into work. Work turned into tests. The committee arrived with clipboards and faces that graded lives. One member snorted at the curriculum. "Hospital forms? Not exactly literature." "We teach what keeps people alive," she said, smiling without surrender. The room held its breath. "Approved," the chair muttered, not convinced so much as outnumbered by decency. News still leaked. A blog's appetite for outrage titled it for him. Billionaire hands control of new charity to maid. Calls followed pretending to be concerned. If it fails, it's on you. If it succeeds, you're invisible in your own project. He glanced at a photo of himself shaking hands with a man history had already forgotten. "That's the point," he said. "For once, it isn't about me." 0-1 on the lease clock found her in a government office that smelled like old ink and impatient air. The form was engineered for humiliation without profanity. She filled lines like stitches closing a wound. "Applicant must read declaration aloud," the clerk yawned. She read. No tremor. And when the last syllable landed, a man behind them whispered to his wife, "I'll come tomorrow." She squeezed his hand on the way out like a blessing that refused to be named. The fundraiser assembled the way good things do, too slowly, then all at once. Lanterns borrowed the sky's job. Bluegate newly certain of itself. Children practiced their names until they sang. An elder rehearsed opening a bank app as if learning a prayer. He wore a gray suit without a tie and walked in a man, not a headline. She saw him and didn't look away. A girl read a poem with confused tenses that still delivered everyone to the same place. Tears honestly earned. An old student said he filled his hospital form last week by himself, and the applause sounded like paperwork losing its power to bully. When she took the mic, she didn't apologize for being radiant. "I used to make floors shine," she said. "Turns out I'm here to help people shine in rooms that forgot them." Her gaze found him and held. To the one who saw me when I was trained to hide, thank you. He clapped like a man whose hands finally reported to his heart. When the crowd thinned, he lingered at the back, watching her gather cups with the same hands that carried chalk and leases in afternoons. She approached. You didn't have to be here. You invited me, he said, and the line meant more than politeness. Was it you? The laptop, the anonymous grant, the letters. He declined theater. Yes. She nodded like someone who already made peace with gratitude and boundaries sharing a table. I didn't want to buy anything, he said. I wanted to protect space. You gave me a mirror, she answered. Now I have to live up to it. He handed her a rolled document, not a trumpet but a tool. Partnership agreement. Program expansion led by Grace, board seat with full vote. Community veto on naming and branding. Annual public audit. No donor plaques, a clause underlined. In conflicts between optics and outcomes, dignity wins. She read, looked up as if he had just moved a wall. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything I could sign. He hesitated, a different kind of courage. Also, dinner. Not as a boss. Not as a donor. As a man who sees you. She didn't cry for effect. She cried because it had been a long day of being brave. I'd like that. The new sign faced the street 2 weeks later as if it had always belonged. The Grace Joseph Literacy Center. Where every name matters. Smaller letters you had to want to notice. Co-founded by Grace Joseph and Henry O, changing lives one voice at a time. They stood under evening light that edited the city kindly. I used to think people like me only served food, she said. People like you serve nations, he answered, and for once a compliment didn't collect a debt. Work refused to end with applause. It learned budgets, calendars, staff quarrels, a printer that ate paper like boredom. A pledged donor withdrew when his logo didn't get higher billing than human beings. They pivoted to 100 small gifts that felt like community and counted like arithmetic. A volunteer burned out. They wrote a rest policy as if it were sacred. A mother signed her name without shaking. A father read a prescription without pretending. Chalk squeaked on good days and bad. Buses hissed their tired music. Rain turned zinc into drums. He learned to listen until his instincts arrived with their hats in their hands. She learned to accept until acceptance stopped feeling like a trick. People asked him at dinners, "What changed you?" He didn't sell a parable. I mistook wealth for wisdom, he said. Then I met a woman who made me want to be worth what I own. People asked her, how did you keep yourself inside something so big? I said no, she told them, until the yes sounded like my voice. Some nights he still sat in the back while she decoded a word that once frightened a room into silence. A hand rose. A sentence risked itself. A name was spoken correctly and stayed correct. He had opened hotels where glass rehearsed being sky. None of it sounded like a person saying, I can sign this myself, and meaning it. Greatness, he decided, isn't a skyline. It's a small room with a blackboard where a woman refuses to let paperwork bully the poor. Generosity isn't control dressed as kindness. It's partnership wearing respect. Love, the durable kind that survives spreadsheets, is choosing the person who knows how to build the thing and then getting out of their way. If you feel that tug, that pinch where your excuses live, consider this permission. Lower your eyes from your empire long enough to see the person ironing your shirt, guarding your lobby at 3 a.m., checking grammar at 6 p.m., packing your groceries at noon, and ask the most dangerous question a powerful person can ask. Who are you when you're not serving me? Brace yourself. The answer might be the start of your real life. If this unsettled you, good. Discomfort is your better self knocking. If it warmed you, better. Warmth is a promise, keep it. We don't rescue. We partner. If you have resources, give quietly. If you have a vote, use it loudly. If you have a name, lend it without needing it on the door. And if what you have is only care, bring it. Care turns ordinary people into infrastructure. When thunder counts slow and the city hums like an old fridge, he still listens to chalk split a word into courage. Freedom has a sound on those nights. Paper sliding across a counter while a clerk nods, a pen moving without shame. That sound is not charity. It's power returning to the person it belonged to all along, and that finally is the only luxury worth owning.